Hello and welcome to Divided States. 11 days to go. Can you believe it?
I can't.
So close. At least 46 million people have already voted. That is astonishing, and it's a third of the 2016 turnout already. I'm Cordelia Lynch.
I'm Emily Purser-Brown.
Second and final presidential campaign debate. It was a really different vibe, wasn't it? Fewer interruptions, a bit more substance. Hallelujah. But still two old men divided on every issue, Em.
It was the big event of the week, the kind of television event, wasn't it? You remember the last one a couple of weeks ago was ruined by constant interruptions. I can't really believe how we got through that, actually, as viewers, we and the American public, just watching in horror as the two men kind of unpicked each other. The debate in between then and now was cancelled because Donald Trump got COVID and the whole thing got blown out the water. So we arrived at last night with the second and final debate. And a mute button that seemed to change the tone of it, Cordy.
Yeah, thank God for the mute, hey? Let's start by talking about COVID. I mean, that has been central to this entire race. It was front and centre again last night on the debate stage. And two completely different takes on where the country is at, where it's going, and what their respective plans are for it.
Absolutely. I think we are now quite familiar with the arguments for both men, actually, of where they stand on COVID. Trump's position for a long time has been that it's under control and that he's doing the right thing. Biden's kind of one of his central campaign promises really is to do better on COVID and get better testing and just essentially be more responsible is his position. And we heard that last night, Biden working quite hard with some of those well-prepared lines to say that, you know, he was going to do a better job.
Trump, conversely, looking to the sort of sunny up plans, all this optimism about a vaccine, though when pressed, he had to concede it's not definitely weeks away.
He would like it to be a few weeks away. He would like it to be 11 days away so that there is a vaccine before Americans go to the polls. But one thing I thought was quite interesting is Trump didn't play all that much on the fact that he has had coronavirus since we last had a debate moment. And he's actually got this incredible experience as somebody who has survived the disease. He didn't really use that all that much. And it hasn't, to my mind, really changed his approach to COVID.
Yeah, I think maybe his team had suggested that he steered away from being too much of the kind of warrior, having recovered from this, and you can too. I think what was kind of most striking and felt different this time round in his coronavirus response is that line, "I do take full responsibility." We've never heard that before from him.
That's true, and I think Biden, has been constantly trying to put that at his door, and perhaps it's a presidential thing to do, to take responsibility. He does, though, I think, still strike a bit of the wrong tone by saying it's getting better, people just need to get over it, work it into their lives. It gives Biden an opportunity to come back with the fact that this has ruined so many people's lives. And he used almost identical phrasing as he did in the first debate, saying, for you sitting at home when there's an empty chair around your kitchen table, this is not the message you want to hear. And I think that there are a lot of people in the country who have been affected by this disease that will strike a chord with.
Yeah, I think Biden was possibly most effective when he was kind of clapping back at Trump. We can't get over this, we're still dying from it. And that is the reality. But there was a bit more humility and compassion than we've heard from Trump so far on the issue. An acknowledgement, I think, from him that he knows on coronavirus he needs to be perceived to be doing better and understanding the plight of the country.
I think that the whole coronavirus section, which was really the first 15 minutes of the debate, you kind of felt like you knew what they were going to say, no great surprises. I think sparks flew later on as they got to more contentious issues, and they both kind of brought out their newer attack lines. One of which is about this issue around Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, and this kind of big scandal that has been born of some reporting in the past week.
Yeah, let's go back to this story because it's a bit complicated, but it continues to swirl. Allegations in recent days have come that Biden was involved with his son Hunter's foreign business dealings. But Biden and his campaign deny this. Ahead of the debate, a business partner of Hunter Biden gave an on-camera statement claiming Joe Biden was aware of the dealings of his son. Further reporting came from the Wall Street Journal, casting doubt on any role of Joe Biden in his son's ventures, specifically in China. So that was kind of where we were at coming into the debate. We all thought Trump might try and skewer Joe on this, and it was quite a central part of his platform.
It's a bit of a difficult story, really, because it is the scandal that has plagued Joe Biden's candidacy really the most of anything throughout the last year and a half, I would say. Don't forget, Hunter Biden was a key protagonist in all of the impeachment Ukraine shenanigans that we went through last year. And so the Hunter Biden issue, if you like, is probably the most difficult thing for Joe Biden to address. Donald Trump sees an opportunity here, and all of the reporting that's been out in the last week, which frankly hasn't been all that well stood up and is, I'm not sure, completely there. It has created problems for Joe because he hasn't been able to answer it directly, and Trump sees an attack opportunity there and he used it. And I thought the fact that he almost asked the question last night really put Biden on the spot.
Yeah, I think he did a really good job on this, Trump, because he was able to kind of cast this murky image of Joe Biden being a creature of the swamp and someone that you cannot trust, that isn't transparent. Now, Biden had a pretty good retort back to say, don't talk to me about transparency, release your tax returns. That's a good reaction, but you will speak to lots of voters that are kind of worried that asking questions, lots of people coming to us saying, what is it with this Hunter Biden story? So there's this swirling doubt that's left. And I think Biden sort of failed to land enough blows back on Trump, you know, talking about, for instance, his own family and their dealings in the White House.
Totally. I think that you got to it exactly when you said it's about the swamp. I think that voters in America don't really care about Donald Trump's taxes, frankly, the tax return issue. Does it change anyone's minds? I don't think so. But they do seem to mind about people being embroiled in scandal. And this whole Joe Biden's been in Washington for almost 50 years thing does look, there's appearances of deals being done. And one of Trump's key benefits going into 2016 was he's not a politician. And whilst I know that he's been the president for the last 4 years, he still markets himself as not the politician, the outsider guy, and I'm about business and not about dirty Washington politics, and in this case, like Joe Biden. And so I can see it having some impact, actually. I think people will not vote for Joe Biden because they don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, I can see it having some impact too, but it doesn't quite feel of the proportions that we saw with James Comey, for instance, the Hillary Clinton emails, which all came down the chute at a similar sort of time. But it's probably one of Trump's most effective strategies in these closing days to cast doubt around Biden's trustworthiness.
Well, it's certainly the decision that the Republicans have taken as the attack line in the final 11 days. I think that we will see this, day in, day out for the next 11 days. And Joe Biden needs to keep on answering the questions, because when he avoids them, as he has a lot during the campaign, it doesn't look good. His pivot was interesting. It's not about your family. It's not about my family. It's about your family at home. Cue, look down the camera.
Line.
Yeah, bingo, prepared line. But, maybe that is what people watching at home are more interested in. And all of this kind of tax money business is actually a bit far away.
Yeah, it's sort of when he's best, isn't he? Laser focused down the barrel of the lens, for sure. Another massive issue in this debate was immigration. That loomed very large. Two candidates starkly divergent opinions on where the country is at on immigration, but they share some weaknesses on it too, right?
Definitely. I think first thing to say on immigration is, where is the wall in this election? Do you remember Build That Wall, which was one of the central planks of Trump's 2016 campaign? No one talks about the wall anymore because the wall has not been built.
It was in every piece we ever did, yeah.
So immigration is actually not one of the issues of this cycle, I would say, but it has been brought up in public discussion this week because of a horrible, horrible story about 545 children being separated from their families who have still not been reunited. Now, our listeners will recall that in 2017-18, we did a lot around the separation of families because of a Trump policy, which was disincentivizing people from coming across the border illegally and putting children and parents in different holding facilities. Now, cycle forward to 2020 now, it seems that court documents show that there's this separation going on, families, parents back in Central America, children still in the United States of America. That is a attack line for Joe Biden because it's something that has demonstrably gone wrong under Trump. But Trump uses it to chuck it back to Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, that issue of separating families did really for Trump polls. It was it kind of strikes at the heart of your conscience, doesn't it? The idea that a child would be separated from their parents for a protracted period. But as you say, Trump trying to pivot by saying, look, it was you guys, it was the Obama administration that built those cages that we will all have seen images of that held families many years ago. And he's right.
The policy is complicated because it was happening in a way underneath the Obama administration. But the issue, the degree of separation, if you like, was more severe under Trump's policy. There was a lot of scandal around it at the time. Heads of agencies, their heads rolled because it went wrong. People like Melania Trump, Ivanka Trump were heavily involved in lobbying Donald Trump to try and end it. There were moments in the press room, you might remember, Cordy, where people were appealing to Sarah Huckabee Sanders saying, are you not a mother? Do you not understand this? So it was a deeply emotional moment within Trump's first term. And I kind of thought his comment last night about the kids being in clean facilities was...
treated well, yeah.
Was really tone deaf. America has orphaned these children, and I don't think that will have sat very well.
So you had those kind of more substantive policy debates, which was good. I think we actually got to hear two very different outlooks for America and a bit more detail. I think Trump was quite good on the economy too. We got to hear him, and healthcare, we got to hear him outline a few more details than we have so far. But what Biden is trying to do is a kind of more broad brushstroke thing of saying this is about character. Ignore some of that. At the heart of this is a man that is not fit to govern.
Kristen Welker, the moderator, I thought asked a really sensitive question on race. She's a black woman asking this question of two white men. She asked them what their understanding was of the talk. When children of colour are spoken to as kids to say, here's how you stay out of trouble because you are disproportionately disadvantaged just from the colour of your skin. And it prompted this sort of emotional response from Biden about institutional racism. Trump sort of took the other approach, saying what he had done for black Americans. And it, to quote Biden's line, to put the character of the nation on the ballot. He comes back to that again and again. But he did have an opportunity in that moment to sort of bring that to the fore.
Yeah, I think on that kind of symbolic level, that told you all you need to know about the two different men. They're two different characters. But I think Trump was quite effective on the crime bill. This was something back in 1994 that Joe Biden was heavily involved in, which saw black men largely incarcerated for unduly long sentences. And he's been criticised ever since for it. He has admitted that it was wrong, that it shouldn't have happened. He's been trying to rectify those mistakes. But in the eyes of what is often, a very frustrated black electorate who feel taken for granted by Democrats, overlooked, unfairly treated, I think that will have resonated.
Couldn't agree more. And it's completely right that Donald Trump's administration has done quite a lot on the criminal justice issue. He's brought together Democrats and Republicans, mostly, I think, under the leadership of Jared Kushner. The likes of Kim Kardashian are regular White House visitors because she is an advocate for criminal justice reform, and they have pardoned quite a few people. And there is work that's been done there. Whether you can extrapolate that to I'm the best president since Abraham Lincoln for black Americans, which is quite a statement, I don't know. But there is something, there is some success there for sure.
Do you think there was a winner last night?
Oh, good question. Kristen Welker, the moderator, yes, I thought she did a great job.
Incredible.
The audience, because we actually got to hear the two men speak. Look, Donald Trump, clearly, this is a TV star, right? He went back and watched the tape of last time. He must have. Saw how he came across, which was like an arrogant bully, and revised how he was going to behave. So the threat of the mute button had a huge impact on the conduct of the two men.
Yeah, and fair play to him. He saw what went wrong and he changed his strategy. Joe Biden didn't really, and so he made up no ground.
I think that's fair. And actually, it has cost him 4 days on the campaign trail as well. We've been reporting this week about, the absence of Joe Biden. Cordy, you went and lurked outside his house in Wilmington in Delaware this week. Sorry.
Surrounded by a lot of Secret Service, yeah.
I am sorry for sending you there, but it had to be done.
That was one of many places you sent me, but don't worry, I forgive you.
But Joe Biden's been in his house for 4 days preparing for this debate. And maybe what we got was 4 days worth of prep. But it felt like what should be baseline performance for Joe Biden. And Trump is a more natural performer. I get that. He hadn't done really any formal preparation sessions. And the two men, I would say it was a score draw.
Yeah, I'd say a draw. Maybe Trump marginally might have had the edge, but what he needed was a knockout, arguably. If you look at the polls, it certainly didn't feel like that.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm being unfair here because our expectations of Trump's behaviour are low because he doesn't really play by the rules. Him behaving like a normal politician felt like a win for him. So yeah, maybe we give it to him. Joe Biden, the main thing, 10 points ahead in the polls. He needed to do no harm, and I don't think that he did.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at some of the kind of history of previous debates, and for instance, Reagan and Carter. Actually, Reagan made up in the final debate 10 points. It was, a real bounce, and there's been other precedent for it. I'd be surprised if Trump gets that from this.
I think that's right, although I think he might pick up a bit, actually.
Yeah.
I tell you what, it brings me to the question of, do the debates even really matter in this final stage of the campaign? Historically speaking, in context, this one is quite late in the day with only 11 days to go until polling day.
Yeah.
What is it going to do to the next week and a half? Is it going to change anyone's minds? Are there even any undecided voters left in America? I'm beginning to doubt it.
Yeah, I'm with you, really. I think it might make people feel more comfortable or more uncomfortable about the decision they'd already made in their minds. But I think increasingly these TV debates are a dated format that are a bit of an irrelevance when you think of just the noise and madness of American politics these days, the spectre of COVID, the economy, where you stand on race and immigration. That's more likely to kind of steer the course, right?
Yeah, although I'm going to advocate for the continuation of the TV debates. As a student of the JFK-Nixon debate, I want them to remain in existence because I think they provide some infrastructure to campaigns, and it means that we all work up towards something, and you do kind of hear on the coalface the two guys or two women, I hope, in the future, go up against each other. They can provide moments, television moments.
Definitely, and or rather only when done well. And I think last night was done really well. Well, with less than 2 weeks to go, we put out a call to the masses on Twitter, didn't
Dangerous.
we? Foolish! To see if you had any questions about November the 3rd, the lead up to it, the aftermath. So thanks so much for throwing some questions at us. We got one here from Naples, Grecian. They ask, great name by the way, given the ages of both candidates and health worries, would you say this election is based on who the best vice president would be? Look, I personally think it was important that Joe Biden picked the right candidate. He was under pressure. He made clear early on that he was going to choose a woman. And a woman of colour as well. He needed to try and reassure the progressives in the party that he wasn't just going to be about the same old, same old. But ultimately, I don't think the vice positions are what people are voting on this election. In fact, I'm not even sure it's really about Joe Biden. This is all about whether you like Donald Trump or you don't.
Totally agree. I think that age is something that comes up quite a lot, especially in regards to Joe Biden, because he has at times seemed a bit doddery on the campaign trail. And so people are aware of the fact that we're talking about two men in their 70s, and thus the vice presidential role, there's more of a possibility than in past years that they would have to step up in the event of an emergency. But I completely agree that this is really about Trump and not Trump. And so whilst they matter, I don't think it's having outsized importance.
I think what will be intriguing if were Biden to win and suddenly Kamala Harris after a first turn gets in, how the public feel about her, because they're still very much getting to know her. It's in its early stages, that relationship.
The next question actually speaks to this, Cordy. It's from Jack Thompson. Is it highly likely, if elected, that Joe Biden would only serve one term as president? So that's about this selection of Kamala Harris, somebody he said on the day that he picked her that she was ready for the job to do it, from whichever day was necessary, the big job, to be the president herself. He's indicated very forcefully that he's running overall just to counteract Donald Trump. And so I think there is an anticipation that Kamala Harris would use these 4 years as a kind of road up towards her own presidential campaign again. Don't forget she ran this time and lost out to Joe Biden. Maybe he is a one-time president.
Yeah, it feels like it. I mean, lots of people that would have liked to have seen Joe Biden run in 2016. There is no doubt that there's been concern about his energy levels his mental acuity as well,
For sure.
his focus, and how much he represents the future of the party. Now, Kamala Harris isn't exactly a kind of firebrand of the new left of the party either. She's pretty centrist, so she'll have her own challenges.
Yeah, I think while we're at it, actually, it's who the Democrats want to be in 4 years' time after this hypothetical Joe Biden presidency. He actually said in the debate last night to Donald Trump, quite a cute line, "I think you've got me confused about who's running. I'm Joe Biden. I'm Mr. Moderate. I'm safe as they come, and I'm not this kind of big crazy lefty with all these crazy ideas that conservatives would be scared of, all of which is nonsense for what it's worth. But he is a real centrist. And in 4 years' time, the Democrats may still want to go further left than they have been able to this cycle.
And just quickly, we should obviously talk about Mike Pence, because if it's a Trump victory, now Mike Pence is a real conservative stalwart, much more of an ideologue than Donald Trump. And I think he is the kind of guy that Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, these kinds of senior figureheads within the Republican Party would be very happy to have him at the top. I think they'd see him as sort of stable.
Yes, if he was put in that situation as an emergency, I think.
Yeah.
If we're talking 2024, jumping on another cycle, do I think Mike Pence is going to be the person that gets to the final, finishing line for the Republicans? Probably not, because you've got Ivanka Trump, Nikki Haley, the former UN ambassador,
Yep,
Indian heritage from North Carolina, an incredible, diverse Republican candidate when we've never seen anyone like that run for the Republicans. And so I think that there are lots of exciting prospects in this post-Trump world for the Republicans in 2024, and Mike Pence might be a bit boring by that stage.
This is a question from Ian Sparry. Is there an alternative to these two old blokes?
I'm sensing age is a theme here, Cordy.
Good question, Ian. Yes. What about Kanye West?
What about Kanye West? He is an available candidate in some places, Cordy.
Available, yeah. Whether he is popular, well, look, he officially announced his candidacy in mid-July. He's reportedly spent $12 million on his own campaign. He's only on the ballot in 11 states, making it mathematically impossible for him to become the president.
I suppose if Ian's question is there an alternative to who will become president, the answer is no. It will be Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Are there alternative boxes to check on when people walk into the ballot? Yes, there are. There's plenty of sort of, random other people, frankly, that you could go for. But the reality of it is you need the numbers. You need 270 electoral votes on November 3rd. Only Joe Biden or Donald Trump will get that.
Just on a serious point, though, that third party candidate back in 2016 with Gary Johnson and Jill Stein, they ultimately helped deliver Trump to the White House in those key marginal states like Wisconsin and Michigan, where things were fought over, low figure votes, 11,000 between Clinton and Trump in Michigan. They really helped elevate Donald Trump. This time round, it's not the same opportunity. Donald Trump's coming more from behind in the polls as well.
Historically, also, there are tons of examples. The first Bush of, when a third candidate ran and changed the dynamic. Clinton, there's, it can totally change the race having a credible independent candidate. It's just not happening this time.
Fascinating questions there. God, there's so many others, some of which I'm trying to prep for election nights, like, disaster planning, every possible eventuality that we're looking at. I mean, let's talk about the week ahead, Em.
Oh, gosh. Well, there's going to be a lot of campaigning. I think we will see actually both candidates on the road, which will be a change for Joe Biden. Trump's due to cast his own ballot in person in Florida on Saturday morning. And so he, like millions of Americans, will be doing it before Election Day. I think that we're going to continue to see evidence of this being the turnout election, if you like, this record numbers of people coming to vote, passions on both sides. The Biden campaign say on the record that Joe Biden is going to be, quote unquote, everywhere in the next 10, 11 days. So he is going to be, I would think, at multiple rallies a day. Trump is already doing 3 on Saturday. Like, he's at that pace already. So our big question is, do we go to them all? I think the answer is going to be no. You'll be glad to hear.
I'll be busy prepping. Yeah. No, it's been great. We've traveled a lot, and I think we've taken a lot from it, actually.
So the big unknown for me is, when is Bruce Springsteen going to go on the trail for Joe Biden? I'm a huge Springsteen fan, and I am going to self-send to whatever event he does. This weekend is the beginning of the celeb portion of this campaign. Lizzo is on the trail today.
Oh, I love Lizzo.
Our favourite Cher is on the trail for Biden in Nevada and in Arizona. I don't think it changed minds, but it adds a little bit of spice.
Yeah, it gives us some nice colour for TV. Trump's got Kid Rock, though.
Where will we be in a week and a half's time? Perhaps in the throes of civil war and crisis. I don't know.
No, I think we may be just waiting, really, as votes are counted and seeing if the American system is up to the job of this unprecedented year. Do you think there was a winner last night?
Oh, good question. Kristen Welker, the moderator, yes, I thought she did a great job.
Incredible.
The audience, because we actually got to hear the two men speak. Look, Donald Trump, clearly, this is a TV star, right? He went back and watched the tape of last time. He must have. Saw how he came across, which was like an arrogant bully, and revised how he was going to behave. So the threat of the mute button had a huge impact on the conduct of the two men.
Yeah, and fair play to him. He saw what went wrong and he changed his strategy. Joe Biden didn't really, and so he made up no ground.
I think that's fair. And actually, it has cost him 4 days on the campaign trail as well. We've been reporting this week about, the absence of Joe Biden. Cordy, you went and lurked outside his house in Wilmington in Delaware this week. Sorry.
Surrounded by a lot of Secret Service, yeah.
I am sorry for sending you there, but it had to be done.
That was one of many places you sent me, but don't worry, I forgive you.
But Joe Biden's been in his house for 4 days preparing for this debate. And maybe what we got was 4 days worth of prep. But it felt like what should be baseline performance for Joe Biden. And Trump is a more natural performer, I get that. He hadn't done really any formal preparation sessions. And the two men, I would say it was a score draw.
Yeah, I'd say a draw. Maybe Trump marginally might have had the edge, but what he needed was a knockout, arguably. If you look at the polls, it certainly didn't feel like that.